Good morning. I figured the video worked well last time, so I thought I would try another video. This one is especially for the grandparents of Zane, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about the temple sealing experience. So we arrived at the temple at 10 o'clock in the morning to a very anxious groom who was pacing in the parking lot downstairs. We were escorted up to the temple personally through some back hallways. They didn't want a lot of interaction with the main spaces of the temple. We were brought up in our street clothes, street shoes, no waiting room, straight to the sealing room. Zane and Kimberly were taken with their escorts to meet with the temple presidency and to do the veil ceremony and it was at that time that Zane discovered that he did not have a living recommend for the veil ceremony. And so I guess I wasn't there, but there was some panic that ensued as they tried to reach his bishop and stake president. For some reason, the bishop, maybe amidst all this craziness, just forgot to issue him that recommend, and that hadn't been finalized. Fortunately, they were able to get a hold of the stake president, and everything was working out as far as we know. So we eventually, Zane and Kimberly came into the sealing room, and if you didn't know this, Tobin's uncle, Gene Hill, Willard's brother, sealed them. And so it was really nice to have it be completely family in the temple. We were in the sealing room with Valen and Kaylee and Tom and Tamara. Tobin and Tom were witnesses. And then myself and Tamara sat next to the bride and groom, like in normal sealings. Uncle Hill or Uncle Eugene started the ceremony after Zane and Kimberly came dressed in their temple clothes. And about 5 minutes into the seminary, this man comes rushing through the door holding his tie in his hand and a clipboard. And he said, "I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this Brother Davies? Brother Davies, we need to talk to you right now." And we were like, "Who's Brother Davies?" And then Zane said, "You mean Brother Hill?" And he said, "Yes, I'm sorry, Brother Hill." And then he whisked Zane out of the room, and we proceeded to wait what seemed like an eternity. And I was praying mightily that something hadn't gone wrong with the recommend. Come to find out later that the very harried man that came in without his tie and looked like he was a janitor was actually the temple president, and he was just kind of trying to get everything done. They had just forgotten his signature on one of the papers, and so we waited, and then Zane came back breathing a sigh of relief, and everything was well, and the ceremony proceeded. I wish I could recount for you every moment. Uncle Gene, he's a scriptorian. He is quick-minded. He is able to it seemed like he was talking from a script, but he wasn't. He made a lot of reference to the Book of Mormon and to the scriptures. I think one of I'm trying to think of some of the things that really stood out. He talked a lot about the priesthood and the role that both Kimberly and Zane had as holders of the priesthood in their home, which I thought that was really nice to remind Kimberly of that, and also Zane. One of the things that stood out to Tobin and I was that he talked about the story of Laconius in the Book of Mormon in 3rd Nephi. I believe it starts in chapter 3. And Laconius was the governor of the land when the Gadianton robbers were making a move on the Nephites and had threatened Laconius with attack. And rather than fall into fear, Laconius gathered the Nephites together into one place where they had to hunker down for 7 years. And Uncle Gene made a parallel with that sometimes we are required to do hard things. And during those 7 years, the Nephites turned themselves back to the Lord and repented and focused on the things that were most right. And Uncle Gene proceeded to say that as Zane and Kimberly would focus on the Lord and focus on serving and doing those things that are, the most important, the most needful, that their lives would be blessed. I wish I could remember more, but as he brought Zane and Kimberly over to the altar and had them kneel and hold each other's hands, the actual words of that moment were exactly what you would expect in a sealing, but there was just a spirit of such joy in the room. I know I was smiling broadly, and Tamara was smiling, and tears were running down her face. And there was just such a fullness in the room that I can't really describe anymore. But after he sealed them, he had them both stand and look forward into the mirror so that they could see eternally themselves. And he talked about how they were going to be going on this journey, this eternal journey together. And then he had them look to the mirror behind them and look behind them and see where they had come from and the eternal place that they had come from. And at that moment, it wasn't, he said, this isn't doctrine, this is just Uncle Gene. But he said, I feel like there's just so much joy in the room right now. Can't you just imagine the joy that is in the heavens with Heavenly Father and all of our family members? And he said, and I feel that today that that Zane and Kimberly's posterity, their future children, are jumping for joy, saying, "Yay! They made it! They made it! There's a family that's been made." And it was just such a sweet little moment. And then after that, we were able to. He had Zane and Kimberly go back to the couch where the bride and the groom traditionally sit in the sealing room, and then as family members, we were able to go over there and congratulate them. And yes, we hugged them. We didn't maintain proper social distance in there, but it was a very, very sweet marriage. It was there were a lot of feelings of peace and of love. And in spite of everything that was going on outside of the temple, and that is going on outside of the temple right now, I have to tell you that literally was not present during that sealing, and not present throughout the rest of the day when we spent time together. But those are some of the things that stand out to me. I'm going to take a pause and see if Tobin wants to weigh in on anything. Okay, just one moment.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what Linda had already said, so...
I talked about Laconius.
Okay.
And the peace and joy.
Did you talk about how they had to stop the ceremony?
I did,
okay.
Yeah.
So I know Uncle Gene said that's never happened before. But anyway... it just was, I heard just the last little bit. It just was really special, and it was just what it needed to be. And we're just glad that they were able to do that before the temples all closed. And we are looking forward to seeing them in the near future, whenever that is. I know they're still planning on coming up to Idaho sometime, so especially those that haven't met Kimberly can meet Kimberly and get to know her better if you've already met her. So anyway, that's all I guess I have to say.
I guess just in conclusion, I just want you to know that we love you. We did miss you, but we felt that the spirit of our eternal family was very much present with us in the temple. And I know for me, I've struggled in the last year with not my faith so much, but just, maybe the whole idea of enduring through hard times and being able to go to the temple and be together, even though it was a small, intimate group, was a good reminder that we can, press forward through difficult times, and that the things that matter the most are the covenants that we've made with our Heavenly Father and our family. And I know I can say for me, I'm very grateful for my parents on both sides. I feel very blessed to have married into such a good family and to have come from goodly parents. And I want you to know that you're part of the posterity that was sealed together in the temple on Tuesday morning. We wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for you. And we love you very much, and we hope that you can feel the Spirit a little bit from this video. And we'll keep in touch. All right? Take care.